Here's a look at a forgotten Cold War warrior, the original submarine hunter, the Lockheed Orion.
It's morning at the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. Since the beginning of World War II, this has been home to naval pilots. The men of Patrol Squadron 24 stroll the tarmac. These 12 men are just one of the many teams around the world that fly the Navy's most unheralded aircraft, the Lockheed P-3 Orion. The Orion is not a glamorous plane. It isn't fast, nor is it capable of breathtaking aerobatics. Operating from land bases, Orion pilots are unfamiliar with the exhilaration of being catapulted from a pitching flight deck or catching the wire on a stormy night. But unlike Navy fighters, the Orion never needed a Top Gun school. During the Cold War, Orion crews waged a private but very real war against the Soviet Union. It began over 30 years ago when the threat of Soviet submarines prompted the Navy to replace their aging patrol planes. Named after the Greek god of the hunt, the Orion emerged as the world's premier sub-hunter. Today, the Hunter has found an expanded role to match the uncertainties of a post-Cold War world. But despite the collapse of the Soviet Union, a less tangible submarine threat still exists, and the Orion still does what it does best: hunt.
All right, everybody gather around. Good morning. Our call sign this morning is BP-24. Tactical call sign's BAT-1. Got a 6-hour mission going off the coast for a tactical ASW.
Today's mission is ASW. That stands for Anti-Submarine Warfare. For Patrol Squadron 24, ASW is the primary task. However, other duties include anti-surface warfare, aerial mining, and maritime surveillance.
Our station on station is about 350 miles off the coast.
Like all Navy squadrons, Patrol Squadron 24 has an insignia. They are the Batmen. This name derived from the Navy's first radar-controlled anti-ship missile, the Bat. The squadron tested the Bat in the late 40s and has held the name ever since.
Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, if we have any emergencies in flight, we got a full NACOPS crew on board today.
Flight operations in the Orion require that up to 12 crew members each share a separate responsibility. However, flying missions that may last up to 16 hours, they must also learn to get along. Deployed from land bases, Orion crews never have to live aboard a ship. 6-month deployments do, however, place squadrons anywhere from Iceland to Italy. Final flight preparations are made by the pilot, co-pilot and flight engineer as the crew awaits word from the plane captain to start the engines. The 4 large Allison turboprops found on the Orion are the same engines used to power the Air Force's C-130 Hercules. The all-grey colour scheme has replaced the traditional white and grey of previous Orions. Although not as aesthetically pleasing, the change makes the plane over 135 kilograms lighter in paint alone. Paint is not the only change for this new generation of naval patrol. In recent years, the balance of world power has shifted drastically. forever altering the well-entrenched military balance of the Cold War. However, submarines have not gone away, and although the threat doesn't come from the Russians, their existence is no less daunting. At 110 knots, Lieutenant Alan Peremba pulls back on the stick and the Orion is airborne. Taking off on an easterly course, the crew will first cross the wide St. Johns River before passing over Jacksonville and on to the tranquil blue waters off the Florida coast. A typical ASW mission usually involves a combination of both high and low-level flying. The Orion can cruise at well over 550 kilometers per hour at high altitudes. Upon reaching the patrol area, it will drop down to about 300 meters before searching for the submarine that may be lurking in the sea below.
Okay, we're out here doing a surface surveillance search right now at 1,000 feet. We're flying loiter at 200 knots, looking for any targets. Okay, we've got a sub on the surface. I'm gonna go ahead and turn and see what kind of boat it is.
Although submarine hunting is a daily chore, every sub contact draws the interest of the crew.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and descend down to about 300 feet and gonna go ahead and man the URDS, and radar is gonna get a check on it. We'll go ahead and see what kind of sub we've got here. Okay, we're starting to get a little better picture of him here. He looks like a U.S. boat from the bow planes. Most likely an LA class. That's our most up-to-date U.S. fast attack.
The URDS, or infrared detection camera, uses variations in surface temperature to provide a detailed picture of the submarine.
Okay, our URDS camera just verified that it is a LA class submarine. He's heading roughly on an easterly course. Okay, we're flying over him now. You can see his whole outline in the water. He looks real impressive down here. Water's real clear, and you can just see by the plume he's putting up, he's got a lot of power. He's looking real impressive. Looks like they're transiting out of port, just getting ready to go out on an exercise. Their ops vary. They can do, when they're in port, they can come out and just do 2-week upkeep periods and just do some short exercises prior to going on a long-term deployment. Next to the P3, I'd have to say submarines are probably the best ASW platform that we have in the United States inventory, because they can be in the same environment as the subs they're looking for, whereas we obviously have to look for them from the surface.
Like the P-3 Orion, the American attack submarine was designed to neutralize what only a few years ago was America's greatest Cold War adversary. Of all the weapons in the Soviet and American arsenals, submarines and their ballistic missiles were the most highly shrouded in secrecy. While new Soviet aircraft could be photographed by American interceptors or during flypasts at air shows, and troop movements and armament buildups could be picked up by satellite, the submarine was always an enigma. With their ultimate refuge being the protective cover of the deep, these stealthy weapons were the most elusive in the Soviet inventory. Despite the emergence of ballistic missile submarines, the traditional anti-ship attack vessels continued to be updated throughout the Cold War. Soviet Victor-class attack submarines carried the torpedo power literally to rip an enemy ship in half. With the addition of the mammoth Delta-class sub in 1971, the Soviets had amassed the largest submarine force in the world. American cities could now be hit within minutes. To make matters worse, the Soviets were also perfecting the lethal cruise missile. Although perceived to be less advanced than their Western counterparts, cruise missiles launched by the Charlie-class submarine could skim over the shoreline virtually undetected. At the height of the Cold War, the P-3 Orion was the front line against the Soviet submarine threat. Detecting the sound of this increasingly silent adversary characterized the continuous game of cat and mouse. The primary listening devices utilized by Orion crews is the sonobuoy. Before each ASW mission, sonobuoys are loaded into each of the 48 launch tubes of the rear of the fuselage. It's from these that the sonobuoys are launched when a subchase is underway. The diagonal slant of these tubes cancels the forward inertia of the aircraft, allowing the sonobuoy to land in the desired spot. Anthony Anderson is the ordnance officer in Patrol Squadron 24.
In flight, we launch the sonobuoys from in the tubes right here. We have 3 of these. We call these our pressurized sono launch tubes. We simply place them inside there with a CAD on top of it, shut the door, and electrical impulse fires a CAD, which pushes the buoy out. In the event these break, we also have what we call a free fall chute right here. You just lift that up, that's unpressurized, put a liner in there, and just drop the sonobuoy out.
Once in the water, the sonobuoy transmits sound back to the Orion. However, the ocean is alive with activity. Noise given off by both natural and man-made sources results in a unique commotion. It's the job of the sensor operator aboard the Orion to isolate the sound of the submarine from the chaos of the sea. Petty Officer Tim Laws explains.
The acoustic station is the first phase of after the sonobuoy gains contact, or the sonobuoy in the water takes all the raw frequencies, noise. It could be ambient sea noise, it could be surface traffic, plate tectonics, and of course we're looking for the master signal of the submarine itself. It comes into this station in a raw form. Once it goes through the equipment, the signal flow for instance, we're able to break it down into the ambient sea noise, surface, and of course we're looking for the submarine. The uniqueness about this station is every submarine in the world has its own fingerprint. And no matter what kind it is, it could be a fast attack submarine, or it could be a ballistic missile submarine, a diesel submarine as well. Everyone has its own particular thumbprint. The sensor 1 and 2 work together as a team to find that thumbprint or a portion of it in the ocean by taking the sound and putting it on a visual presentation such as this screen here. Once we find the visual presentation of a possible contact, we make a determination if it's a friendly submarine or if it's a foe. Once we make that determination, we find out what kind of oceanographics we're dealing with. Is it direct path contact? Is it closer? Or is it convergence zone, a much more distant type contact? We take that information and we work closer with the tactical coordinator and try to track the submarine.
The tactical coordinator, or TACO, effectively becomes the aircraft commander when a sub-hunt is underway. He's responsible for the plan of action to be taken against the stealthy adversary lurking below. Maintaining complete radio silence, the TACO coordinates all communication between the pilot, navigator, and sensor operators. The Orion has many ways of finding and tracking enemy subs. However, during surveillance operations, both sides strive to be invisible.
This is a passive, covert station. We can stay at high altitudes, drop our sonobuoys, and I'm able to get that information out of the water and track the submarine without him knowing that I'm there. All the other sensors on board this aircraft require us to be at a little bit lower altitude, which puts us a little more risk because it puts sound in the water from the 4 large engines outside the aircraft. Once we determine that we have contact, the sensor 1 and 2 will work together with the TACO to determine what the buoy spacing should be, what type of buoys, because we have different types of buoys on this aircraft, that are used to best suck sound out of the water, if you wish to say, to make this whole thing happen.
3 decades of hide and seek have given Orion crews ample opportunity to polish their skills against Russian subs. Over this period, the technology employed for the hunt has expanded to counter an ever more quiet enemy. But more important than technology has been the experience of veteran crew members who pass on their knowledge to the next generation of airmen. Being able to identify a Charlie, Victor or Delta class submarine simply by its sound comes not from the classroom, but rather from on-the-job training. The proficiency with which these Cold War veterans perfected the art of the hunt caused noticeable frustration to the Soviet Navy. In fact, one Soviet admiral was quoted as saying that when he wanted to know the location of his subs, he simply asked where the Orions were operating.